Okay, so once you've verified through this preview what you actually, that you've found actually what you need, you've then got a number of options as to what you can do with it. Now, one thing which I think is really, really good is that you can export the results to a PST file, so it's like a personal folders, archive file that I'm sure you're all familiar with. I've certainly been familiar with them as an IT techie when people have corrupted them or gone over the size limit. But you can export straight to PST. Now, when that happens, you get a nice little user interface pop up, which will load in a moment, hopefully. It uses click once, and it is just launching now. So in a moment we'll get a dialog box, and from this dialog box it's possible to choose where you save the PST to. It's also possible to enable deduplication, which is very important. So say for example you locate a message that's been sent to lots of users who are within your search. It will only actually copy one copy of that message to the PST. It won't kind of copy multiple copies of it and bloat the size of the PST. You can also include unsearchable items as well, though to be honest that's beyond the scope of what we're discussing today. Another thing you can do if you're in a larger organisation is you can copy the search results to a discovery mailbox. Now by default, Exchange Online has one created already. It's called the Discovery Search Mailbox. Very imaginative name, but it's functional and it does the job. I've created an additional one called HR Disciplinary, just in case we have any people who are sending inappropriate messages to the receptionist or whatever. So you can then choose to copy the search results to whichever discovery mailbox that you would like to. I've already copied some messages to the Discovery Search mailbox. I'm not going to do it now because it will take about 5 minutes for them to fully copy across. So what I'm going to come to next is email encryption. So I'm just going to change the display mode so that we can extend the presentation onto the projector. Right, okay then. So as you're kind of probably all aware, security is becoming an ever increasingly important aspect of business. There are some situations when you're transmitting data that you need to be 100% sure can be, that is going to be encrypted and transmitted in a secure manner. And in some instances, you want to be able to enforce it so that if somebody does a forward or a reply, that message is also encrypted. Now, by default, Office 365 will transmit messages using TLS encryption. This is dependent on the receiving email system also supporting that. In instances where that's not going to be possible, you can use a technology called Office 365 message encryption, which will, when you send an email using this method, will send the user an email with an attachment they need to open. When the user opens the attachment, it redirects them to a secure web portal from which they can then log in and view the message. It's kind of like brings up an Outlook web app just specific for that message. The user doesn't need to be an Office 365 subscriber. All they need to do is have a Microsoft account that is associated with their email address that they're receiving the encrypted message to. If they don't have one, they'll be prompted to sign up for one, and it's a very quick process. So I'm going to quickly take you through the process involved in configuring this. And just show you how powerful it is in that you can specify what kind of messages are encrypted based on any number of kind of message attributes or indeed the message content. So I'm just going to just end the slideshow now and change the display mode and go back into the portal. Okay, so we'll just go back into the Exchange Management Console. This is a very, very quick process in comparison to doing this in an on-prem environment. Kind of setting up kind of TLS and stuff like that is incredibly quickly. What I'm going to quickly show you though is configuring a rule that enforces Office 365 message encryption which will work with any email system or any client device. So we go into the mail flow rules, and from here I've already created one. I'll just edit it and show you how it works. Okay, so you can specify how the rule applies, as in whether it applies to just users inside the organisation, outside the organisation, or both. And you can specify any number of attributes. You can specify whether it encrypts it because it's got an attachment, or if it's to a specific recipient, or the message is kind of CCing or including a person in it. So, for example, if there's somebody CC'd into a message where the receiving email system doesn't support TLS, this would be a situation where you use it. I've actually created this rule. I'll just go back into it because I've just messed it up. I've actually created this rule to kind of create a situation where if somebody was emailing credit card information, the message would need to be encrypted. So I've got it so that the subject or body matches, and then these slash lowercase d's represent single numeric digit values. So that is typically the format that you'd have a credit card number in. So I've put that. So to kind of demonstrate this rule in action, I'm just going to show you it now. So I'm just going to go into Outlook, and I'm going to send an email from this test environment to my SOL-TEC email address. In fact, ironically, now that Outlook's had a few moments to load, it's actually brought the discovery search mailboxes up. I'll just quickly show you those now. In here, you can see the name of the query that I've run, and then you can see when I've run it and the mailboxes that I've run it against. And in there, you can go into primary mailbox, recoverable items, and then purges. Purges are emails that have been kind of hard deleted, aren't recoverable by an end user, but are still held because of litigation hold. I'm now going to exit Outlook and go into my SOL-TEC email account for the purpose of this demonstration. Okay, so I'm going to send one email that doesn't have a credit card number in it. So I'm just going to put hello, this is a test, and that will just be transmitted to my to the recipient just in normal text. I'm now going to send myself one with a what looks like a credit card number in it. So I'll just call this test 2. So I'll just type in right, that's kind of the format, typical credit card number. So I'll just send that to myself now, and when I come into Outlook in a few moments, I'll have seen that I've got a test message, and now I've received, that's just got the plain text in the body, and I've also received an encrypted message with a web link with a HTML file attached. When I open this, it will take me to the Office 365 message encryption portal, which is specific to this tenancy. Now, it is possible, I haven't done it for the purpose of this demo, but obviously if you're sending a large number of these out, it's possible to actually brand your portal with your own company logo and your own company text, so that when a user kind of comes to that portal, they see some kind of corporate identity associated with it. So now I'm already signed in with my Microsoft account, so it should, in theory, not prompt me to log in, and it looks like it's going to load it. Right, so I'm just going to have to sign out and then sign back in. I'm now signed in as Stuart. I think I'm having a bit of an identity crisis. So I'm just going to kind of completely come out and back in. So hopefully now that there's no user actually signed in, it will prompt me to enter my credentials, and from there I can so because I've got an Office 365 account, because we use Office 365 for our email, I'll choose to log in with this. Just log in with my credentials, and then from here I can now view the encrypted message within the Outlook web app. Now, it's worth pointing out that any user would be able to access this irrespective of having an Office 365 account. The fact that I'm on 365 is superfluous to this. I could have sent this to my Gmail account. I've got a Microsoft account associated with my Gmail account. I could then, I'd have exactly the same experience. And from here, it's possible to reply or forward the message. And when you do that, it works transparently as if it comes from you. So there'll be no indication that it had been sent from the Outlook web app or from kind of outside whatever email system that you're actually using. The same goes for the attachment as well. I haven't attached anything to this message, but if I had, you'd be able to download it from within here and kind of open it as you would do normally. It's also worth pointing out as well that from this interface, it's a pretty cool way of ensuring that the message remains encrypted for its life cycle, because when somebody replies using this Office 365 mail encryption, the message will actually be encrypted and sent using message encryption to the to whoever you then forward or reply to. So it ensures it's encrypted throughout its entire life cycle. So I mean, that pretty much concludes what I have to say about Office 365 message encryption. Does anybody have any questions about that?
If you've got a 50 gig limit on your mailbox, but users exceed that, is there a message archiving feature that's available for users to search messages that persist back even if they've been deleted or purged, or would only your eDiscovery administrators be able to do that?
It would only be the eDiscovery administrators who'd be able to kind of run that search and retrieve those messages. It's worth noting though that group, that eDiscovery kind of managers group, is very kind of limited in terms of its scope of operation. So if you add somebody, you could add a non-technical user to that group, and all they'd be able to do would be run eDiscovery searches. They wouldn't be able to alter anything, with the back end of Exchange, for example.
Sure, I'm just thinking of users with mail archiving. If they, we have users who say, "Oh, 8 years ago, I sent something to someone and I deleted it, and I want to know what it is." So we have.
Yeah, if they'd deleted it, that you would have to kind of use you'd have to get an admin or an eDiscovery manager to do it. Now, what you could also do in situations where users do go above the 50 gig mailbox is enable online archiving, which is a standard offering for the enterprise plan, and that gives potentially unlimited archiving space. So rather than having a locally stored PST, in your Outlook folder tree, you'll instead get an online archive, and it's possible there to configure auto archiving just as you would with a local on-prem kind of Exchange Outlook combination, except instead of doing it to a PST, you're doing it online, so it's much more secure and you're much less likely to lose data that way.
Thanks.
No problem. Anybody else at all?
Yeah, also on a similar subject, you obviously got the 50 gig limit per mailbox.
Yeah.
How does that tie in with the litigation hold, which in theory includes all those anything you out?
That's a very good question, and that was one of the first things I thought of as well when I was kind of first implementing it. Now, basically, when you enable litigation hold, you get a dedicated extra 30 gigs of storage for the purpose of held messages. So any message that's been deleted but is held, that will go against a separate quota of 30 gigabytes per mailbox. Per mailbox. So in essence, when you enable litigation hold on a mailbox, the total combined storage space in that is 80 gigs, and then obviously you've got the unlimited online archiving on top of that, which is kind of even greater. So yeah, that's right. So if that's all the questions we've got about litigation hold and eDiscovery, I'll just kind of move on to the next slide, which is really how SOL-TEC can help with your Office 365 migration implementation. So I'm just going to bring this slide up. Okay then, so we can provide dedicated Office 365 support. We've got a number of professionals who are very, very kind of conversant with Office 365 and familiar with its management. We can advise on which plans are best to suit your needs. We can help you. We can help ensure that your migration is a success and that you utilise all the features that it has to offer. We can migrate from pretty much any email system into Office 365, so we can do on-prem Exchange. We could migrate you from Google Apps. We could even migrate you from another provider's hosted Exchange into Office 365. In fact, that's one thing that I did fairly recently. We can do a variety of kind of setups. If you're not wanting all your users to be in 365, you can do a hybrid deployment so that you've kind of got the best of both worlds if that's what you want. And we can give you kind of like best practice guidance in terms of configuration steps and so forth. As Stuart touched on earlier, we can integrate kind of Intune very closely with 365, and we can federate it or kind of link it to your on-prem AD and line of business applications, so that, say for example, you've got an application on site that sends out emails. We can get that tied in with Office 365 so that they relay via 365. We can get single sign-on working for you, and we can also provide SharePoint design and implementation support. So we've got a whole kind of broad range of kind of services we offer in regard to that, it's a very painless process. So has anybody got any questions about that, or about this presentation as a whole, or what we've touched on? No, right.
Actually,
okay.
I do have one. I guess it's fine. You said about the kind of transition from whatever platform or service you're currently using into a new. But I mean, you've obviously dealt with, but what have been the pain points with some of your customers? I mean, there's clearly got to have been some, right? So is there like a common theme of pain points?
We had that's an interesting question. Yeah, we had one customer, and they were running an old sort of legacy 2003 Exchange, and obviously in the cloud at that time it was running at 2010. So there are limitations with what you can do there. And we were discovering those limitations as we went along. So we did a staged migration in the end. But if you've got a 2010 infrastructure on-prem, then that's a whole lot easier for migrating up into a cloud. You can either do a coexistence or a hybrid model. So I guess that was a bit of a challenge, just because of 2003 doesn't have PowerShell. There are limitations around that, and that was a bit of a challenge. But we've learned how to do that, and even with the 2003, and obviously now we're at 2013 in the cloud, there's a migration path. That was one of the things that was a bit of a challenge.
One of the other ones we often come across is coexistence. So if you get people who don't want to make a full plunge at once and do sort of big bang cut-over type migration, so then maintaining interoperability and things like, people say to start with, we don't really open this guy's calendar that often, or we don't really use public folders, but then halfway through a migration, it's like they do, and it's then making sure you've got the right levels of interoperability, and you set off on the right path before you start, get halfway through and find out that the guys can open these calendars or anything like that. So it's kind of making those bits that trickle up the actual process of moving the messages and getting the content is actually very straightforward. It's the planning before that, making sure that you don't underestimate what people use email for within your organisation, how reliant they are on certain features that you think no one uses them.
It's also worth to say that we work with a number of other companies for migration tools to basically, I talk about Lotus Notes, and so we'll use a migration tool to pull that out and actually convert it over.